I have got a wonderful interview for you today. Very interesting, all about title and title insurance. Stick around. Hi, welcome back. My name's Joe Brown. I'm a realtor with Century 21 Lisbeth Beggins, located in South Tampa. Thank you so much for being here with me. So if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. Most importantly, share this with your friends and family who you think could benefit from this information. I do want to thank those of you who've watched the previous videos. I did a series of 5 videos of an interview I did with an insurance agent. I tell you, it is valuable information. So if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. I'll put links up here throughout this video. Really important information. And I need to address the flood insurance because October 1st, the flood insurance premiums are changing, which may affect many of you. So stick around for that. Certainly next week is going to be the market update for September. However, today we have a interview with Erin Elser with Majesty Title, because in the buying process, we need title and title insurance. And that's really a vague idea for a lot of people, right? Whether you're buying or selling, you know you have to do it, but not sure what it is. So Erin does a great job explaining it, explaining the process. So enjoy the interview. Right. So we're here with Erin Elser. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay. I said Erin, right? That's good.
Yeah.
And Erin is with Majesty Title, and we'll talk about Majesty Title just a little bit. But Erin, my YouTube channel is focused on all things real estate and South Florida, Tampa living. So just share with us, but because one of the things we deal with in writing contracts and through closing is title and title insurance. So what is all that? What is title? What is title insurance?
Sure. Well, good morning, Joe. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to get to talk a little bit about what I get to do. And title insurance is probably kind of an enigma to most people. Most consumers, I would say, don't actually know what it is or why they need it. They just know that their realtor or lender tells them you need it, right? So you're the one kind of driving that business and that relationship with the title company. But title insurance is really important. It's actually a process that ends with the issuance of a title insurance policy. So title starts with a very comprehensive search of the public records, and that determines if there's any liens or encumbrances which are attached to the title. Now, we look at hundreds of sources that we gather and review, including tax records, appraiser sites, federal and state and local records, including judgments and deeds. And we also evaluate whether the property description, also known as the legal description of the property, is accurate. And so as a title company, what we ensure is not the property address, it's actually the legal description. What most people don't realize is that 25 to 30% of all title searches cover a problem which must be rectified prior to closing. And most people don't realize that owners of their current home, including their go ahead.
No, you said 25 to 30% have a problem?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why it's so important. And quite frankly, you know, we do share that throughout the, especially because there's things that may take a long time to clear up. Most recently, I had a closing in which a bad deed was recorded. It was missing hired witness signatures, and it took us weeks to track down the previous company who prepared the deed to get it re-executed. And so a lot of people don't realize that. They get their deed, they think they're entitled. Well, that deed wasn't valid. So us, you know, Majesty, we have to ensure, no pun intended, that that deed is correct before we can move forward and transfer from your seller to the new buyer. So it does take a lot of time. A lot of people don't realize that family members and heirs actually have very strong rights associated with property. And to touch on too, it's really easy to place a lien on a property or to create a title cloud, but it's extremely time consuming and oftentimes costly to get it cleared up. So that's a little bit about what title is and what we do behind the scenes.
So you've said so many things. So talking about looking at permits, right? So if I have a house and I want to enclose my garage and I do it myself, and then I go to sell the house, would I run into a problem with title?
That's a great question, and I think often misunderstood. So as a title company, we run a title search. As a courtesy, per the terms of the contract, we will also run what's called a municipal lien search and permit search. Those are actually not title issues. Yes, they do affect the property, but not technically a lien or an encumbrance, something that would prevent the new owner from clearly owning and enjoying that home, right, or that piece of land. Okay. So absolutely, we have those searches, and what we do is we run the search and then we provide the details to all the parties to give them a snapshot of, if you will, of what's affecting that property in terms of, are there open utility balances? Are there any code liens, and are there any open permits? At that point, if we discover that there are open or expired permits, it is actually between buyer and seller to help get that rectified prior to closing. We can certainly assist with the process, but it's not necessarily a title issue, nor is it going to appear on the title commitment, which is what we produce, which is what we have to clear in order to issue a clean title policy at closing.
Okay. And then who pays for the title insurance? Is it just the seller side or just the buyer side or a bit of both?
I like to say everything is negotiable. However, in this area of Florida, it is very typical that we see the sellers pay for the title search and the title premium per their contract. That's pretty standard in this area. There's also, of course, closing fees, examination fees, search fees that are priced, at cost and also market driven. And so as title company, we also have to recapture, the overhead expense for mailing and courier fees, doc preparation, wire fees. But as far as the title search and the owner's insurance premium, most of the times here in this area, it's paid by the seller. Now, if a sale is being financed and a loan policy is also required, that responsibility most of the time on the buyer to pay for the loan policy and any applicable endorsements that their lender might require. But even though sellers usually pick and pay, I also tell buyers, it's your prerogative. You have the right to choose your title company as well. So that's always negotiable.
So you just talked about financing. So I would say typically if somebody's buying a house, the seller has an outstanding mortgage on that house. So would the mortgage company, so in your case, Majesty, would they help facilitate the payoff of the old mortgage and satisfy that? So they do all the accounting on the back end, right?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, once we do a search of the public records, we produce a title commitment. And a title commitment is going to tell you, first of all, who's vested in title, who owns the property, who the proposed insured will be, meaning the buyer and or their lender, if applicable. And then it will give us all the requirements. So everything we as a title clear up, and then any exceptions, things that we are not insuring. The requirement page on Schedule B1 is going to show whether or not there's a mortgage, sometimes a mortgage and an equity line. And yes, that is our job. We must work with the seller in that case to obtain their loan information and usually their social security information, and we will obtain a payoff. We will make sure that payoff is good through the closing date, make sure there's a bit of a cushion with interest to ensure that the payoff gets to the bank in time and is posted to the account. But we can't close until we have that payoff. And some banks, as you know, take a long time to produce payoffs. Some turn it around in a matter of an hour, which is great. But we will coordinate that with the seller in those transactions. And then what happens is we will either based on what the payoff says to us, we will either wire transfer the payoff funds, or we will send, a certified check or a title company check via FedEx to that payoff lender. That payoff lender, then it's their responsibility at that point to ensure that the funds are appropriately credited to the seller's account and posted. And then typically they have 30 days to file what's called a release or a satisfaction in the county in which that property was located that releases the seller from the obligation of that mortgage. And I always share too, as a little side note with our sellers, because they ask, oh, what about taxes or insurance? We escrow for that. Absolutely. I get that. The lender actually at that point, once they receive the funds, it is their responsibility to ensure they properly refund the seller. So within that 30 days, and you can guarantee it's probably going to be on day 30, they will get a refund check if there's anything in an escrow account, either taxes or property insurance. And we also follow up too to make sure that that satisfaction or that release was filed appropriately. But we'll always keep that backup data, proof that we received and requested the payoff, a copy of the payoff, a copy of where it was sent and who it was sent to. Because, sometimes things get missed, especially back in 2007 or 8. You can imagine there are a lot of mortgage satisfactions and release that mysteriously were never filed. So we still see those come across our desk even now in 2021. So we always keep that back off and we make sure we follow up that those were filed appropriately.
So you talked about it's a process. There's all these searches that have to do, and really, so maybe there's a misunderstanding out there that, if closing is coming up and we have to postpone closing, a lot of people say, what's the title company doing? We can't close. But you're really at the mercy of the lender, aren't you? And getting documents.
Thank you for saying that. Yes. we often are the scapegoat, and that's okay. We'll take the blame. That's fine. We do not mind. I like to say that we are that party in the middle that kind of takes all the pieces together, puts it in a nice little gift wrap box and puts the bow on it and hands it to everybody. So if something goes right, we're usually not the one getting the pat on the shoulder, and that's okay. But if something goes wrong, it's our fault, right? That's okay. So as a title company, we are that middle party, right? So we're working with the listing agent, the buyer's agent, the buyer, the seller, the seller's payoff lender, the HOA company, the insurance companies, the lender. So we do have to work with a lot of different parties and ensure that we're in compliance with both the contract, both the lender's closing instructions. And so, yes, it's not always the title company's fault, but we are the one, of course, scheduling closing, and we are oftentimes at the mercy of when the lender is clear to close. Has the lender gotten an appraisal? Have they gotten all of the underwriting conditions cleared? Has the buyer provided to the lender everything that's necessary to get that clear to close? So, we work really hard, and at Majesty, we ourselves on getting effective so much as, there's really no update today, but we're working on it. Sometimes that goes a long way too, just to let people know, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. Your closing is obviously still a priority, but we are working with a lot of different parties in that transaction to make sure it goes smoothly. So yeah, we are at the mercy sometimes of other parties, and things happen that are out of our control, but we do our best to get it to the closing table and get everybody paid and hand those keys over.
So, and because you've been living it for several months now, today's real estate market is crazy. And sellers say, we want to close fast. Mm-hmm. So, and like I wrote a contract this morning with a 30-day close. And I told my sellers, I said, this is going to be tight for the title company. So from your standpoint, what is the fastest that you can close?
That's a great question. If we're talking just residential property, we can turn a title search around quickly. I say 3 to 5 business days. Commercial properties do take a lot longer. There's a lot more in-depth examination that's required for commercial property. So I tell people right at the forefront of a commercial transaction, give us at least 10 business days for that title search to come back, right? So if you're writing a contract, please don't write it in a 30-day close, because we need at least 10 of those business days to get the search, done and turned around into a title commitment back to all parties. Residential, listen, I've closed some in a couple days, but that's assuming the title search is clean, first of all.
Right.
Clean meaning like there's no payoff, there's no judgments, there's no HOA. And usually it's a cash transaction, right? Because if we're working with a lender and financing, it's not going to happen that quickly. I would love for that to be the case, but the reality is it's just not. So, in cash residential transactions with a clean title commitment, those we can close, a week, 10 days. Where the holdup is if there is an HOA, we have to order what's called an estoppel. Those can take anywhere from 10 to 21 days.
Wow.
So we may order it within a couple of days of getting the contract from you, but we don't get that estoppel back for weeks. And then what happens is if we're asked to rush it, we will, but there's a rush fee that the HOA charges, and we have to then pass that on to the seller. Sometimes it's a couple $100s. And as you probably have seen, those HOA estoppel preparation fees, those are already pretty high to begin with, then add a couple $100 rush fee. So it's just, whether or not that's worth that to your clients. Same thing with municipal lien searches. Some counties here in Florida are a little bit backed up because the market is so inundated right now. So those lien searches, we're ordering as soon as they come in, or as soon as the contract comes in, and those are taking, 2 weeks as well. So we try to provide all that information up front to our clients and let them know, hey, this is what we're looking at right now, just with things being returned to us from third parties. Do you still want to move forward? And most of the time, parties do. I've closed a couple transactions where they didn't want a lien search, and that's fine. It's not a title requirement. We'll have the parties sign a hold harmless. And don't forget about surveys. Do they want a survey? If they want a survey, great. Again, another courtesy, and we'll order it on their behalf. Absolutely. But it's summertime in Florida. It rains every day. And so backed up. So, you talked earlier about being sometimes at the mercy of the lender. Yeah, we're also at the mercy of all these third parties we have to order these different searches and products from as well. So I've seen a file close in less than a week. I've seen some take a couple months. So just as long as I think everybody's communicating with each other, and as long as we're all on the same page, we'll get it closed as soon as we possibly can. Trust me, I don't want a file sitting on my desk any longer than it needs to. So I want to get it closed for everyone too.
So let's go back. So you said the easiest, right? If I have cash, if I'm a cash buyer not dealing with the lender, but let's say I do have a lender, but I already have a pre-approval letter, right? So does that help speed it up? Even though you still have to get the documents from the lender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in the case of title, it doesn't necessarily matter to us. And the reason I say that is because the lender may have pre-approved them. The lender still has to work with us directly as the title company. They prepare what's called a lender title request. They send that to us. We have to prepare a lot of documentation for them, for their file. They take that. It's still all part of their underwriting conditions. So in our case, no, a pre-approval letter actually doesn't matter. If anything, it's just giving us maybe contact information for who that lender is so we can get the ball rolling. But in that case, I think it's a lot more important as a buyer, right? Because you're a more attractive buyer if you have a pre-approval letter already. Your offer may be a little bit prettier than the next if you have that pre-approval letter.
I have never been accused of being an attractive buyer or attractive, period. So, Erin, I'm sorry. So I really appreciate your time. But now tell us about Majesty Title. Where are you located? How big is the company? Right?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So Majesty was founded in 2006 here in Tampa, Florida. So we offer a range of title services to buyers and lenders. We try to provide the most cost-effective solutions for both their residential and commercial real estate transactions. We consider ourselves, a national company. And I say that because we're actually part of Fidelity, which allows us to leverage the resources of the largest underwriter in the country, but we have a local focus, right? So we 7 branch in Florida, South St. Pete, St. Pete Beach, Brandon, Riverview, and we also have 2 over on the East Coast in Vero Beach and Melbourne. And that all falls under the Majesty umbrella. And our clientele consists of successful mortgage bankers, amazing realtors like yourself, builders, developers, investors. And we believe truly that the client is paramount in our approach to doing business every day. And we feel that our expertise and our leadership will differentiate ourselves from our competition, because we know a title policy is the same policy as the company down the street, but it's the relationships that we work really hard to build, and the customer service and the talent that we have on our teams that we feel will set us apart. So I've been part of the company since its inception.
Wow.
Because it was started by my father.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was family owned and operated, and now it's still family operated. My father is still very much involved in the business, and my sister is involved in the business too. So, we like to have that kind of family, local neighborhood approach to how we work with both our internal team, our staff, and of course our clientele as well.
Well, I will tell you, as an agent, I've done several deals using Majesty Title, and have just been so impressed with the professionalism, the communication, the efficiency. So from my side, it's been a great experience. So
thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you. We try hard.
So Erin, any closing comments before we end?
If there's one thing I always, I hate to touch on it, but it's really important, and I would be doing a disservice to our clients and our industry if I didn't bring up how important it is just to be aware of wire fraud. It is a huge threat to our industry. And we make it, a top topic of our conversation internally and in all of our branches and conversations. But I just want everybody to be aware that it is out there, it is real, it is scary. And we do not want any of our clients, most important assets, their money, to ever be stolen. So if there's anything that our agents can do to help prevent that, it's by providing us contact information for buyers and sellers as soon as possible. Once you get that offer accepted and you're getting ready to send it to your title company, send us their contact information. We have a very small window for us to reach out to the buyers and the sellers and build rapport and establish trust with those clients, so they know we are a real legitimate company. Here's our wiring instructions. Here's what wire fraud is, and trust that at some point in the transaction, someone is going to try to deceive you. So we want our clients to have had that conversation with us early on in the transaction, so they know these are instructions. They're never going to change. If they ever change at any point in the transaction, you call us, and you call us on a trusted and verified number. And I always tell people, if they haven't, already called us or talk to us before, plus find our phone number, find it online, and call that phone number, and make sure that you verbally verify any wiring instructions provided to you with the title company prior to sending any funds, because it's a nightmare for everybody, and we don't want anybody to lose, their life savings over something like this. It's really scary, but I just want to make sure that's always at the top of everybody's minds in the transaction, because it's so important.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I've told my buyers, when you receive an email about wiring, pick up the phone and call the company just to verify they really sent the email and this is legitimate. So
yep, you're doing great service by your clients by doing that. That's really important. So we thank you for that, because that's what we're trying to do too.
Well, Erin, thank you very much.
Well, I really want to thank Erin for spending time with us today. I hope this information was useful to you, right? Because it really speaks to the ownership of the property for you and title insurance. Couple key takeaways, right? That during the closing process, you put an offer on the house, you have the inspection, you have the appraisal, but all those factors, the surveys, the lien search, the loan documents, all have to come to the title company for closing. So, but the title company takes a lot of blame if you don't close on time. But just know they're at the mercy of the other people getting information for them. That's why when you want a quick close, yeah, it's tough, but because you're at the mercy of other people. In today's market, 30 days is a quick close. It used to be 45, 60 days to close. So just understand that. Listen, I love sharing this information with you. I love educating you in this area because South Tampa, Florida living is awesome.